Share some of your strategy that you specifically followed for phase 2.
We have the MCQ part and the descriptive part. Both require different kinds of preparation.
So how did you manage to write a crisp and qualitative answer?
So this requires brainstorming and creating a structure for your answer in the beginning.
Government schemes put a major role here. So how you were able to refine there, like this particular ministry is very important from your examination perspective.
For example, startup and entrepreneurship is something that is very frequently asked. So there I used to cover all the schemes.
So one question, Tanay, that I want to ask you, that how Oliveboard helped you to achieve this success in your entire journey?
So as I mentioned, my preparation this time focused on refinement, and Oliveboard was one of the very important sources for that. Your YouTube videos for the explainers, the MCQ series on different reports, budget, economics surveys.
So hi everyone, welcome back to the third part of the video, wherein now we'll talk about the phase 2 part basically. So we'll talk with Tanay entirely about his strategy, about the resources that he used specifically for targeting phase 2. And in the first 2 videos, we've talked about phase 1 and rest of the things that are related to the preparation entirely. So if you have missed out the first 2 parts of the video, so of course you can just see them first and then you can come on to the third part of this particular video. So Tanay, now can you please share some of your strategy that you specifically followed for phase 2?
So as we know, phase 2 is the core of the examination as far as RBI Grade B is concerned. So maximum of your efforts need to go into phase 2. Here again specifically we have the MCQ part and the descriptive part. Both require different kinds of preparation. If I come to ESI, the MCQ part is a continuation of the phase 1 GA. Descriptive part, of course, you need to put in special effort, which I did. In finance and management, again this is my personal opinion, management was easier for me. So I extensively prepared management to be able to write good descriptive answer on any topic that came from the syllabus. And finance I prepared from the MCQ point of view, but also to write a descriptive question that is not from the core finance topics. Like for example, we saw this year a question on 81 bond. Now that requires a very comprehensive and deep understanding of the subject. But there are other questions that are doable in finance, so those can be targeted. And in management, it's entirely static. So one needs to be well versed with all the theories, their proponents, thinkers, philosophers, and even some examples from current affairs or anything that makes your answer more appealing and stand out is a good investment as far as management is concerned.
So phase 2 is just divided into objective and descriptive part, we all know. So which one was your favorite one, or I would say कि किसमें आप ज़्यादा comfortable थे? Was it objective type or subjective?
Of course it was descriptive for me, because there is a sense of easiness in the descriptive paper. I was confident that I would be able to score above 35 in descriptive any day, irrespective of the nature of questions. But in objective, you never know the kind of questions. As we saw in the exam this year, the questions from management in the objective section were very unconventional and not doable. They were the comprehension based questions that required to be able to deduce the answer based on the information given in the paragraph and also our static knowledge. So those questions can really give you a shock in the examination. But descriptive is more or less consistent. If you prepare well, if you have prepared all the topics, I think there is a good chance that you can get a score around 35 in descriptive.
So Tanay, in descriptive part, we all know that there is a word limit, right? So, and again, this is a CBT test. And of course, you cannot just even write one word extra here. So how did you manage to write a crisp and qualitative answer?
So this requires brainstorming and creating a structure for your answer in the beginning. Of course, the topics that you have prepared beforehand, you can directly start writing as you have this sense of proportion as to what are the content that you have learned or memorized or you can generate at the moment for the topic, and then divide your word limit accordingly. But for questions that you are generating at the moment, for example, there was a question on growth versus value investing in finance this year. That was a pretty unconventional question, and I don't think anyone would have prepared for it in that sense. So those types of questions require careful planning, mapping out a structure in rough before starting with the answer.
Okay. So let's consider that, in particularly ASI, that you were asked a question on let's say digital financing. Okay. So this is a question of most of the aspirants here कि ma'am हम जो qualitative answer है उसको कैसे बनाएं? You have to add a lot of material like your data points and your current schemes that have been brought by the government of India. So how will you manage to write that answer, or how did you manage to write ASI answers specifically, and about finance and management also? Were you like combining it with the static portion and combining it with the static your current affairs also, or what was the case?
So before this, during my UPSC preparation, I had already studied Vivek Singh sir's book on Indian economy. That is a pretty comprehensive book as far as ESI static is concerned. It covered almost the entire syllabus. So I was already reasonably confident that I would be able to write a good answer on any topic that came in the examination. So this year I focused on refinement. So I picked up 50 topics based on the PYQs, broad current affairs of the last 5 months, and of course the syllabus. And for those 50 topics, I created dedicated 2-3 pager notes that comprehensively covered that topic, like very precise notes. For example, for a particular topic, I used to write introduction, present context, what are the data points, government initiatives, challenges, prospects, way forward. So all these components of those topics used to be covered in those notes, and then I revised those notes again and again so that I would be able to write well in the examination, even if a question peripherally covered that topic. And that actually helped me very well, because in ESI, out of the 4 descriptive questions that I wrote, 3 were from my notes. So there was a question on problems in youth unemployment. There was another question on national industrial corridor that was covered in my infrastructure notes. And there was another question on sustainability and conflict. So these questions I had already prepared in those notes, so I could directly start writing in the examination. So some of the topics that I covered were gender issues, AI, so financial inclusion. So these were some of the topics that I covered in those notes. So that actually helped me get quality content for the examination, while also merging current affairs with the static portion. Since I was writing this after having an understanding of the syllabus and current affairs, after my phase 1 preparation where I had already studied the current affairs, so I was able to seamlessly merge all the information into 2-3 pages and write those in the exam.
So I feel like government schemes put a major role here. So how you were able to refine there, like this particular ministry is very important from your examination perspective. So how did you go with the refining here?
So for each particular topic, I used to include the government schemes there itself. For example, startup and entrepreneurship is something that is very, very frequently asked. So there I used to cover all the schemes, the seed fund initiative, startup village entrepreneurship program, other government schemes related to that topic in those notes itself. Of course, I also covered government schemes from a compilation for the MCQ purpose. As you know, in government schemes, the questions are really very deep, going into the nitty-gritty of this stuff, like eligibility, when the scheme was promulgated, what is the outlay. So these kinds of things require a different kind of preparation altogether, apart from the descriptive part. So for that I studied compilations, and I practiced MCQ from different YouTube channels, including Oliveboard. But for descriptive, I included those schemes and just 1 or 2 lines about them in those notes, which were easily reproducible in the descriptive paper.
Mm-hmm. So similar to the question for PIB also, we have a lot of news regarding rest of the ministries that are there. So how you used to refine that this particular news is important from my examination perspective, whatever is there in PIB specifically?
So that I had already done while studying PIB current affairs for the first time during my phase 1. I segregated those by highlighting it with different colors for descriptive and objective point of view. And while making these notes I made after the phase 1 examination, while I had a good understanding of the entire syllabus. There I included those content. And if you look at it, though current affairs looks very vast and multidimensional, all of those topics can be condensed into 50 or so broad topics. Like the current affairs keep repeating and also can be captured in those 50 topics. So there was not much problem in placing the right current affairs within the right topic. so as to keep it in a structured manner in my mind to be able to reproduce it in the examination.
So Tanay, we've talked about government schemes, we've talked about PIB section also. Were you following any specific newspaper also?
No, I was not. Since I already mentioned that my philosophy has always been never follow any primary source when there are better and more experienced people doing the same for you. So I only followed compilations of different institutes.
So Tanay, I feel like that editorial plays a greater role when it comes to your descriptive writing and descriptive part. So answer writing can become more better if you're regularly following editorials or something. So were you following any particular editorial or particular newspaper, just focusing on the editorial part only, because that gives you more clarity, because you have to put your opinion there as well. So were you following any specific editorial part?
Not before my interview, since I had very little time. So I think I thought though that time was better invested in refining the contents of the syllabus and the PYQs rather than studying different verticals that are covered in the editorials. Although I realized that some other successful candidates also mention the role of newspaper in their preparation, and I think even that could be a good strategy, but for me, no newspaper before the interview.
Okay, so now we'll come on to finance and management. You just mentioned that jo finance had, you were not good at it. You were, you more focused on management part. So any specific resource that you followed for, covering your finance syllabus in management specifically?
So for finance, much of it was already covered in Vivek Singh sir's book. So I brushed it off from there. There are certain topics like financial markets, derivatives. Those are more advanced and those are not covered there. So I researched it from online sources, YouTube channels, to understand those topics. For example, in Basel norms, there are a lot of different technicalities involved, CAR, CRAR, all those topics which need to be understood, and it was difficult for me to pick up as a non-finance student. So I made notes out of them by watching different YouTube channels and online resources, and I studied the compilation, like the notes of a particular institute for the finance section. For management, I put in a lot more effort because I knew that I had to write 3 descriptive questions from management and only 1 from finance, and the one that I was just comfortable in writing. So for management, I followed, last year I had followed a YouTube channel. I followed that, and I also supplemented it with my own notes by researching online for different thinkers, examples that I could include in my answers to make it stand out. So management, all in all, I focused very comprehensively, and I had a 90% plus strike rate. At least that was my strategy for management in MCQ. But of course the questions were a bit unconventional this time, so that strategy went haywire, and anyway I just scored 37, but that was
so you have to cover current affairs also when it comes on finance. So were you specifically focusing on any of the particular sources while covering current affairs for finance also?
I used to follow it from the compilation of an institute, because RBI circulars and notifications are anyway pretty hard to comprehend and process for a person who is not of finance background like me. So I used to follow secondary sources for them as well. I also practiced MCQs from different sources based on those current affairs to develop a thematic understanding of those topics. Of course, not to mention the reports that I created separate notes, like 1-pager, 2-pager notes for each of those reports, because even last year there were a lot of descriptive questions from the reports directly. So I needed to make sure that I was in a position to write good answers, relevant content from the report itself, and not write whatever came to my mind during the examination. So that I did.
So we've talked about the 3 of the disciplines. Now coming on the English part. So you mentioned in the previous video that English was an easy task for you. So were you specially focusing on any specific resources for covering your English part?
Not exactly, because since English was my strength, I spent the least amount of time on it. So what I did was I sat down one day, opened 50 YouTube videos from different institutes, and wrote down the do's and don'ts that were being said by them as far as English is concerned. So based on that, I attempted 2 or 3 mock tests, and I saw that I was able to reasonably complete the paper. And after that, I just practiced some essay topics without actually writing them, just seeing the topic and trying to brainstorm ideas and create a structure and good introduction and conclusion. So that was all for my English preparations.
So every aspirant know here that descriptive answer writing is there, and it is completely CBT. So typing typing speed also plays a very important role here. So what is your say on it?
Definitely, because I would not say that typing is the definitive factor as far as clearing the exam is concerned, but it could prove a bottleneck in descriptive writing. So you need to have a reasonably good typing speed of around 40 WPM. Fortunately, I had always done my studying on my laptop. So writing notes, extracting content from any online source into my notes, PDFs. So I had already had a hang of typing, so I didn't need to invest much in them. So what I invested in rather was the structure of my answer, investing in a good introduction and conclusion, writing in a manner that is readable, that is more accessible as far as the content is concerned to the examiner. So that was my primary focus.
So you mentioned in the previous video you were previously preparing for UPSC, so you also used to write answers there, and now then you were shifted to CBT. So what was the change like? What was your experience when change was complete there?
Yeah, it was a new experience, particularly because of the interface. The interface that is provided to write is not very friendly compared to the ones that we usually use in our computer. So that was a change. But since I had a good, reasonably good typing speed, and I did not need to think much about writing the answer, so it was not much of a problem for me, to be honest. Answer writing I already had practiced during my UPSC preparation, but there were some changes that needed to be done. For example, in UPSC we tend to write shorter answers, more analytical, but in RBI we are expected to write opinions that are directly quoted from any official source, reports, or something that the chief economic advisor has said, or something from the monetary policy committee, minutes of the meeting. So that was a change. Apart from that, I think in RBI there are less number of questions, and also the word limit is pretty high for each of these questions. So you have an opportunity to actually invest in a good introduction, to think on your feet about the quotes, data, anything interesting you can find about the topic and mention it so as to make your answer more eye-catching. And something that I used to follow was that if I had complete information about a question, or I had already prepared it during my studying phase, I used to write point-wise manner, because that would help me to put in more information in those limited words and make it more appealing. But if I was generating a question at the moment, for example, the growth versus value investing question, I used to write in paragraphs, because it is easier to flesh out your ideas that way, and also you can make your answer seem more comprehensive with less ideas in mind when you are writing in a paragraph format. So that is something that I followed. Apart from that, proper spacing, coherence of ideas from one paragraph to another, there should be a seamless transition. This is especially true for essay, but also holds for descriptive writing in ESI and finance and management. So these are some of the things that one needs to keep in mind. Also, while generating ideas, there are a lot of similar looking ideas that we generate. But if you start sequentially typing them, then you would find yourself in a position that you are repeating the same thing again and again. So you need to structure your content first, club similar ideas together, and then start writing after that, or start typing of course after that, so that you are able to complete the word limit and also not feel redundant. Your answer should not feel redundant to the examiner. It should be relevant, crisp, as well as contain all necessary information.
Exactly. So now I'll come on your mock test marks basically. So you just mentioned कि आपने पिछले साल भी दिया था, but unfortunately were not able to give interview, and then you appeared for this year examination as well, as in I'm talking about 2024. So like from where you started, of course your scores would not be very good when you gave your first mock test, and I would say that considering 1 to 10 of mock tests here. So from where you started, what was was your score in the first mock test, and then how you made improvement that you are, you are here at this position that you have scored or reached to AIR-1. So how would, I mean, improvement जो था वो कैसा था, and how was you preparing for it?
Actually, most of the problems that I faced in my descriptive writing was last year when I started out. This year, after having given the exam and cleared phase 2 with a reasonably good margin of 20 marks, I was confident that I would be able to write the answer in a good structured manner. So I focused more this year on the content and the enrichment of the content with facts, figures, official reports, quotes, etc. Or in case of management, some unique examples. So this year I did not attempt many mock tests, and even those that I attempted, I only did brainstorming to find out whether I was able to generate ideas or not. So in descriptive, I used to score pretty much similar scores as I got in my final examination, 30 marks, 32 marks. Of course, in the final examination, I scored above 35 in descriptive paper in both the sections, ESI and FM. And last year, I solved mock tests from a couple of institutes to begin with. This year I did not.
So now I'll come on to the interview part. So interview के बारे में सब कुछ जानेंगे कि कहाँ पे हुआ था, कितने जो panelists थे, how many panelists were there, and what type of questions they were just asking you. And current affairs का उसमें कितना role था, what preparation you were just putting in phase 1 and phase 2, how it helped you in interview section as well. So what is your say on it?
So we often hear that interview is a test of personality, not knowledge, but I would say that knowledge, having knowledge and reading up on different topics doesn't hurt. As it was evidenced in my interview, it was a multi-dimensional interview. It covered a lot of sections. So what happened was, it was in Kolkata. I just got 14 days for preparation. It was in the initial phase, my interview. That day there were only 4 candidates and I was the first one. So my interview went on for around 40 minutes or so. So it covered everything, and when I entered, I was pretty nervous that because of the fiasco that happened to me last year. So whether I would be asked tough questions on it, and why did I apply last year if I was not eligible. So, but Chairman sir actually said that he admired my perseverance, that I was here the next year as well, despite not making it to the interview room last year. So that meant that my interview started on a good note. It started with finance and economy topics. Then it went on to HR questions. Then I don't know from where, but climate change came into the discussion. And then a lot of the interview section actually veered towards it, about discussing climate science, about from a chemical engineering perspective, since I'm a chemical engineer. And finally, since Chairman sir also shared my discipline, he was also a chemical engineer. So he asked me questions on writing differential equations, plug flow reactor, all those things that I was not very convincingly able to answer. So I was thrown slightly off balance in the final part of the interview, but apart from that, it went smoothly.
Okay. So specifically, talking about finance and management, ESI and rest of the subjects, they do not put a lot of, heavy part in the interview only. You are asked questions on the rest of the things also. So that is what you have generally mentioned. So now I'll ask you about the interview preparation that you just said that you had 16 days, for the preparation period. So what all resources did you refer to and what all you prepared in these 16 days?
So I had a choice to make whether I would focus on my biodata or I would study finance, management, all those topics, especially from a current affairs point of view. So I decided to stick with the former, because in any case, finance was not doable in the short span of time. So I researched on every point that I mentioned in my biodata pretty extensively. I read 2 newspapers, Live Mint and Indian Express, to get different perspective, especially the editorial part. And apart from that, I just appeared for a couple of mock tests to see whether I was confidently able to answer questions. I could not do much preparation for interview because of the short span, but I think it ended well. I got 65 out of 75 in the interview. So yeah, exactly. So interview is something that actually makes your rank in the examination. Phase 2 is of course the core of the examination. It decides your selection. But when coming to getting a good rank, I think interview plays a major role, because you can get a lead of 15-20 marks instantly from your competition, which is very, very difficult in phase 2, but in interview you can get it.
Now I've asked like a lot from your strategy portion, from your disciplines portion. Now I'll ask you about the motivation basically, because your preparation has been very long. Firstly, you prepared for JEE examination, then you were going through to an IIT, and then you started your preparation for UPSC, and then you came to RBI. So it has been so long. But what motivated you exactly to sustain in this entire journey?
So I have always developed a habit of studying and a life of discipline, to be very honest. So motivation has never been very high up in my list that pushes me to work every day. So discipline is something that I inculcated from pretty young age. So JEE preparation was something completely different. That was kind of a full-time 11-12 hours kind of chore. Also because at that age you get a drive to study more. But in course of preparing for UPSC and RBI, smart work plays a major role. You need to be more structured, methodical, to invest time in those things that would yield high returns to you. So to that extent, I would say this was more fun, preparing for RBI and UPSC. Notwithstanding the moments of depression, low time, I would say, but it was generally fun, and I did not feel too much pressured at any point in time in course of this preparation.
So one question, Tanay, that I want to ask you, that how Oliveboard helped you to achieve this success in your entire journey?
So as I mentioned, my preparation this time focused on refinement, and Oliveboard was one of the very important sources for that. Your YouTube videos for the explainers, the MCQ series on different reports, budget, economic surveys, that provided me with very good practice. I also extracted content out of those explainer videos to include in my notes. Apart from that, I also appeared for free mock tests on your platform and analyzed them for my weaknesses, and that helped me improve immensely.
एक क्वेश्चन जो मैं खुद से पूछना चाहूँगी कि घर का माहौल कैसा होता था बेसिकली, बिकॉज समटाइम्स यू फाइंड सम फैमिलीज जिनका प्रेशर कॉन्टिन्यूसली रहता है कि अब तो IIT से भी निकल गए, अब तो ये सब प्रिपरेशन भी कर ली, अब फिर से प्रिपरेशन वाले फेज में क्यों वापस जाना है, गो एंड डू सम जॉब. सो घर का माहौल कैसा रहता था?
सो प्रेशर तो माइंड में ही होता है इस चीज़ का, क्योंकि जनरली जब IIT से कोई निकलता है तो थोड़ा एक्सपेक्टेशन ज़्यादा रहता ही है सबका. बट माई पेरेंट्स वर वेरी एकोमोडेटिंग टू मी. उन्होंने कहा कि डू योर बेस्ट, और तुम ये नहीं भी हुआ तो वी स्टिल स्टैंड विथ यू, वी नो दैट यू विल डू ग्रेट थिंग्स इन लाइफ. सो ये तुम्हें नहीं हुआ तब भी हम देंगे. तो पेरेंट्स से तो उतना नहीं था, बट जनरली एक माहौल होता है, एक माइंड में एक फेज होता है इन दैट गेट्स यू अंडर प्रेशर समटाइम्स. तो एक्सपेक्टेशन लोगों का तो वो थोड़ा रहता है. बाकी माई पेरेंट्स आर वेरी चिल. सो उन्होंने कहा ठीक है, यू डू योर बेस्ट, नहीं हुआ तो विल सी व्हाट विल डू.
So thank you so much, Tanay, for being with us. I think this was such a qualitative conversation, and you just entirely focused on each and every part जो कि हर एक aspirant के लिए बहुत ज़रूरी रहता है. So thank you so much for being with us. I wish you a very very good luck. I am very hoping this thing कि आप आने वाले time पे भी बहुत अच्छा करोगे, because your journey says itself कि you have done a lot of things, you have put a lot of you can say preparation, you have achieved a lot of things here. So I am hoping this thing कि आप आने वाले time पे भी बहुत अच्छा करोगे. And thank you to my aspirants also who have been with me till now. We have completed 3 parts of the video. So of course these 3 parts of the video are very very qualitative in nature, and this will help you in cracking this examination also. So thank you so much for being with me. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.